You are listening to The Soul's Quiet Call, written by Akumah and voiceover by Sara.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Chapter 18, The Storm of Truth. Aarav stood at the threshold of Meera's flower shop, the familiar bell above the door ringing as he pushed it open. The sound felt foreign to him now, like an echo from another life, one that he had left behind, along with the ghosts of his past. The silence inside was heavier than he had expected. Meera wasn't at the counter as she usually was, arranging the bouquets with her delicate touch. Instead, the shop felt empty. The vibrant colors of the flowers, the sweet fragrance in the air, they all seemed distant somehow, as if the world had shifted just slightly out of place. It had been days since he had returned from his family, days since he had confronted the truths he had been running from for so long. The pain of it still lingered, a raw wound in the pit of his chest, but it was a pain he knew he had to carry. He had finally faced what he had been avoiding, the betrayals, the broken promises. He had come back with a new understanding of himself, but the weight of his past was not something that could simply be shed. But as he stood there, waiting for Meera to emerge from the back, something inside him twisted with uncertainty. What would she think? What would she say? Would she see the man he had become, or would she only see the man he used to be, the one who had left her behind in the storm of his own confusion? His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. Meera emerged from the back room, her eyes meeting his with a quiet, steady gaze. There was no shock in her expression, no wide-eyed surprise. Just a calm recognition, as if she had known he would be here. And yet, there was a distance between them, something that hadn't been there before. "Aarav," she said softly, her voice gentle, almost like a whisper. She didn't come closer, didn't offer him any kind of greeting or embrace. She simply stood there, watching him as if waiting for him to speak. For a moment, neither of them said anything. The silence hung between them, thick and palpable. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was simply real. And in that silence, Aarav felt the weight of everything they had both been through. The pain. The distance. The uncertainty. The unspoken things that neither of them had been ready to confront. "I went back," Aarav finally spoke, his voice slow but steady. "To my family. I faced them. I don't know if it made a difference, but I needed to." Meera's gaze softened, but she didn't reply immediately. She simply nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. There was no need for words. She knew the journey he had been on because she had been on her own. "You don't have to explain it to me," she said quietly. "I understand." Aarav's chest tightened at her words. There was no judgment in her voice, no reproach. It was simply acceptance. It was the one thing he hadn't expected, after everything that had happened, after everything he had done to pull away from her. Meera wasn't angry. She wasn't asking for answers or apologies. She was just here. And that, more than anything, scared him. "I've changed, Meera," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm not the same person I was when I left. But I don't know if I'm ready to love again. Not the way I should. Not the way you deserve." Meera's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of something passing through her eyes. It wasn't pity, but something deeper. Something she had come to understand through her own journey. She took a step forward, closing the distance between them, but there was no urgency in her movements. She was no longer the woman who needed to be rescued, no longer the woman who had waited for him to come back and heal her heart. She looked up at him, her eyes steady. "Aarav, I've learned something. Love isn't about fixing each other. It isn't about waiting for someone to be ready, or waiting for someone to heal. It's about two people who choose to be together, who choose to see each other, flaws and all. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. But I'm not waiting for you to be. Her words struck him like a thunderclap, a sudden wave of realization crashing over him. Meera wasn't looking for him to complete her. She wasn't holding on to the idea of a perfect love, one that would erase all the pain and the baggage. She was seeing him for who he was, scars and all, and that was something he hadn't known he needed until now. I don't expect you to have all the answers, Meera continued, her voice soft but firm. I don't expect you to have everything figured out. But I'm here. And if you're ready, if you're really ready to face everything, then maybe we can move forward together. Not because we need each other to be whole, but because we want to be. Aarav swallowed, the lump in his throat growing. He had always thought that love was something that could be earned, something that needed to be earned through effort, through proving himself. But here, at this moment, Meera was showing him something entirely different. She wasn't waiting for him to prove anything. She was simply offering herself, offering her love, with no conditions, no strings attached. For the first time in his life, he realized that love wasn't something that could be fixed or controlled. It wasn't something that could be forced or shaped into a perfect picture. Love was messy. Love was uncertain. Love was about trust, about vulnerability. It was about two people standing together, not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to take the leap, even when they didn't have all the answers. I'm sorry, Aarav whispered, his voice hoarse. For everything. Meera's eyes softened. You don't need to apologize, Aarav. Not to me. You've been carrying this weight for so long. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. They stood there, both of them quietly processing the weight of their shared journey. There were no grand confessions, no sweeping gestures. There was just the raw, unspoken understanding between them. At that moment, Aarav realized that he didn't need to have everything figured out to move forward. He didn't need to be perfect. He just needed to be willing to take a step, to trust, and to let himself be loved. Meera had already taken that step. And now, it was his turn. I'm here, Aarav said finally, his voice steady but filled with emotion. And I'm ready. I want to try. I want to learn how to love you the right way. A small smile curved on Meera's lips, a soft, knowing smile that reached her eyes. We'll figure it out together. And for the first time in a long time, Aarav believed her. They didn't need to have all the answers. They didn't need to fix each other. They simply needed to be there, for each other, no matter what came next. In the silence that followed, the storm of truth seemed to dissipate, leaving behind a quiet sense of peace, a sense of hope. And in that silence, they both understood that this was only the beginning.
Akumah Audiobooks.
Refer to the channel playlist for a better experience and close your eyes to let your imagination run wild. Subscribe.